Bend settle. Sensitive.
You want to look at your market's insecurities, and you want to rub salt on that wound in your email.
Charming.
Just keep his belly full and his balls empty, and you're never going to lose the guy.
Agreeable.
Let's talk about the law of reciprocity and why I think it is just a crock.
Humble.
That's when things start going wrong, in my humble but accurate opinion.
Helpful.
You need to get hurt. You need to get chased by the saber-toothed lions out there. You need to get bit.
Accepting.
I like this guy. He's kind of an ass, but I like him anyway.
Helpful.
Just doing the right thing is actually the most profitable thing to do, even for a sociopath.
The Ben Settle Antipreneur Show begins now.
This is Ben Settle of bensettle.com and bensettleshow.com. And this time, on this particular episode, I am handing over the mic, so to speak, across 18 states. I don't know, you're in Florida, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But Jonathan's going to teach us about how to set up your own podcast. He's also going to tell you about a service that he's putting together in case you just want to outsource it to him. He's the one doing this show. He's doing my friend Jim Yagi's show, and he knows what he's doing. So I'm basically just going to talk to him. I'm going to ask questions on your behalf. And if you have any more questions after the show, we'll show you how to get a hold of Jonathan. So anyway, without further ado, Jonathan, the podcast guy.
Hey, look, Ben, I want to also let everybody listening know that what we're trying to do, we're going to try to get better at this as we go along, but we're going to have show notes available to you with more detail on all this stuff, and that's going to be over at bensettleshow.com/BSA12. So all the notes and like the links and the deep down information that we can't go into here, we don't want to get into too much hard teaching, is going to be available at bensettleshow.com/BSA12. Okay?
Okay. I'm just going to start out with some real basic questions because honestly, Jonathan, we're on show number 12 now, and I still have no fragging idea how this all works. So my first question to you, okay, since you've been doing enough of these shows now where you have a much better perspective on this than I will ever have, why is this important for someone to have a podcast? Like this is the reason I started this is because I just wanted to do one. I didn't really have like this agenda until you and I got together, but you offered to help me, and I figured you saw some potential in it. So why would someone listening to this want to start a podcast?
Well, if they have an ego, maybe that's one reason. And if they're a little bit narcissistic, that's another reason. But seriously.
Well, those work for me. So
yeah,
that's
they work,
cool.
Right? This has been going on forever, man. I've been doing podcasts since before they were cool. I mean, back in like 2009, I did a show. I think I did 77 episodes. And it was just interesting to me just to see how the podcast and my podcast audience kind of correlated to my best customers, if that makes sense. So whenever I put out a higher priced product, it seemed to me that the people that bought it were usually podcast listeners. But I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why podcasting is getting so popular now. I'm not sure. But I do know that listeners of these shows are usually better customers. So I think that's a reason, just to connect with your customers, to kind of heighten that relationship and kind of just take it to the next level, because it's different when you're writing emails like we do, or you have a sales page. This is something that people can take with them, right? People can take you to the gym, take you in the car, take you wherever they're going. They can multitask. So it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just becoming a popular way to connect with people, and it's a good way to spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever you do with your customers.
Take me to the bathroom.
Sit down on the
to the bedroom.
Right.
I wish I had this email in front of me, and I should have had it figured out before the show started, but whatever. I got an email today from this listener, Chris Carroll. And he wrote me this long email. He said he's been on my list for like a year, my email list. And he's been putting off buying email players for a year. And then he said he started listening to this show, and he basically said, "You got me." And if I remember correctly, he said this show was a big part of it.
Nice.
So I think kind of throws people off, Jonathan, is they get so caught up in, can you test this, testing that. A lot of these things are intangible. Like building an audience doesn't have to be an email audience. It should be part of your audience, but I see this as just another reach, like another arm reaching out, another tentacle from my octopus-like being, where I'm trying to grab new listeners and new people to expose them to my website and stuff. And this goes for anyone listening to this. I'm just giving you my perspective, that you're not going to get with AdWords or, blogs or any of this other stuff. It's just a whole new thing. It's people who are listeners. They obviously like to bring information in audibly. Isn't there like 3 ways you bring information in? One's like visual, one's audio, and the other's like kinesthetic.
Right.
And this gets you that audio one that your emails cannot get that. And neither can a video, but audio, like you say, they download it to their iPod and bam, now you're in the car with them on their next road trip. And they're bonding. You're bonding with them. And it's powerful. I see it happening because I see people's feedback and stuff. I can't trace it to a lot of sales, but I've had sales since we started this, and I can't trace every one, but I know some of them came from this. So to me, it's
awesome.
completely worth it.
So Ben, check this out. I want everybody listening to know I'm not really an expert or anything like that. I study what the experts are doing. I'm just a businessman. And one thing is, you know me. I mean, you've known me. I've been a subscriber for 3 years or so, almost since the beginning of Email Players. And you know that I'm not afraid to take action. So that's kind of my driving force here, even doing the show with you and all that. But check this out. I was doing some research to make sure I had a good show for you today. And I ran across John Lee Dumas. I know you don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but this guy's like the #1 podcaster in the world. I think iTunes gave him an award last year for the #1 best podcast in iTunes, right? This guy has figured it out, and he's really making a big splash in the industry. And you want to know what he's doing and what makes him so different and what made him #1?
Let me guess. He does them daily?
You know it. That's it, right? So the daily thing, I want to bring that back to what you do, right? So you email daily. I email daily. It's that consistency that drives business. So consistency in your emails, consistency in your podcast, consistency in whatever you do is really going to be a driver for your business. So if you're taking your message and amplifying it by doing email and podcast, now you're hitting your audience on multiple different levels, giving them that way of bonding with you, and then just giving them more reasons, like the guy that bought from you, just giving them more reasons to buy till they can't say no to you. Now, check this out really quickly. I wish I had these numbers. I don't yet, but we'll talk about some of my numbers in a little bit. But this John Lee Dumas guy, he actually puts up an income report, and he's been doing 6 figures month after month for the last few months, just through his podcast community, his advertising. We're going to talk about monetizing a little bit later, so we'll touch on that. And I want to remind everybody listening that links to everything is going to be in the show notes. bensettleshow.com/BSA12. So we're not going to go too deep into that stuff, Ben. Okay.
Well, the next question I would have for you then is, let's say the person listening to this, the loyal listener to the show here says, I want to do this. I want to make this work for me. What is the first step that they have to do before they do anything else?
I would say the first step really is to already have an audience, already have a product, and already have an idea of what you want to sell when you get started. And this is actually contrary to what most of the experts out there will teach you. They'll teach you the opposite and tell you to go out, create the best show you can, start building an audience and all that. And I just, I think that's a hard way to do things. I think it's better if you already have an email list, you already have products that you sell to this list, and now you're looking for another angle to hit them on. So does that answer your question? Is that a fair answer?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, in other words, if somebody's just starting out and they don't even have an email list or customers or anything, I mean, they could do it, but it may not be worth it for them. Is that what you're saying? Or should they do it anyway, just so they have some momentum coming in?
I don't think they should do it, Ben. Like, for instance, I wouldn't have offered to work with you if I didn't think you could push downloads, right? Because if you can't push downloads to the show, then what's the point? So you got to be able to push some amount of traffic to it in order to amplify your message. Because look, we're going to talk about equipment and stuff in a little bit, and this isn't cheap. I mean, I show you, you have bookkeeping on your show, and you know that it isn't cheap. I mean, if you're just starting out, I would just like subscribe to email players and do emails and start building your list that way, because this is not for beginners.
Okay. And I would imagine, I don't know if this is true or not, just going by what the little fragments I do understand about this, is just getting in like the new and noteworthy would be pointless if you don't have something in place to sell anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, so what? Are you going to take a screenshot and be proud of yourself? That's fun. That's cool. But that's not going to really make you any money. I mean, look, this is not for people that are just starting out, because it's like a high barrier to entry. Everybody else will tell you different. They're going to tell you, oh, buy the cheap mic, just record anything and get it out there. But look, I've done so many shows now, Ben. I mean, I've done hundreds of podcasts between you, Jim, the Making Agents Rich show, some of my older shows. And I just know that if you don't have certain stuff in place, like a product, a way to promote that product, and a list to promote it to, that you shouldn't start here.
Okay, fair enough. The next question I would have, I'm going to ask about equipment later. But I want to get over the core stuff. You know what I mean? Just the big picture stuff. How do you get your podcast on iTunes? Because for years I tried to figure this. I never could figure it out. How do you do it?
How do you get it on iTunes? Well, you just basically go through the iTunes submit. You could probably Google that. I'll have a link to it in the show notes. But basically, as long as you have a show and an RSS feed, you just submit that to iTunes, and then the reviewers, not a lot of people know this, but there's actually human reviewers in iTunes who have to give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down for your show. Well, if you submit it to iTunes, they go through and approve it, and a couple things that you need to have in place for that is to have your cover art in place, several episodes ready to go so they know that you're real, and a website is always good. So you want to have all that in place. Then you just go on to Google or check the link in the show notes and just look for submit podcast to iTunes. Or, if you want to be smart about it, you hire someone to help you that knows how to do all that. Because, you don't even have to worry about that right now, do you, Ben?
No, I don't even you and I talked about that at the very beginning. You're like, Ben, I don't want you doing anything for this except the show part, doing the show. That's it. And promoting it. And I like that. And that's why I encourage anyone listening to this to, at least look at what Jonathan's going to be offering, because the time, I could not do this on my own, quite frankly. I have too much other stuff going on, and it's just not, I don't like messing around with all that technical stuff. I don't want to have to put my own team together, because I'm sure that you went through a lot of trial and error and ups and downs trying to find the ideal team, which you now have together. They run like clockwork, right? But you probably had some not so good people on your team. You had to filter them out and all that.
Ben, let me tell you how bad it was in the beginning and why I failed. Like my first show I did, and I had just a real simple way of recording it. The audio quality was terrible, but I knocked out 77 shows that way. And I realized, it wasn't very professional, and I wanted to look more professional, packaging like we have on this show, intro, outro, different things like that make your show stand out. So then my next try out, I decide that I'm going to do it the other way, where I got to edit my show, and I'm using GarageBand on my computer, and I'm recording shows and then editing them together and splicing together intros and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, great, one show of a half hour takes me about 4 to 5 hours of work. I'm like, hell no. I quit that show, and I went back and I regrouped, right? I was like, look, this is not going to work. This is not, it was just too much time and too much effort for the little reward. And then I came back again, and I came back with a new plan. I don't know. I want to talk about it a little bit more when we talk about monetizing, but I'll tell you how I overcame that. But yeah, I put together a team, and the team basically is like a factory. They're a production factory. There's different people that have different jobs, and they all work together to grab our audio, produce it, and promote it.
And they take care of setting up the intro music and the outro music. And, I mean, the guy, I forget his name, but the guy who does the audio stuff, I mean, he's incredibly patient. You got to find a guy who's patient, or a girl, I mean, especially if you're just starting out. I mean, I'm serious. I think back to if I wanted to do this on my own, I mean, I'd be lost. I'd still be talking through my computer speakers, like absolute crap. You know what I mean? And it's just terrible. It's just, I don't know. Here's another question I have for you. And this is a little off topic, but I think people who listen to this show, especially, I'm going to encourage them to take to heart. And that is, they got to do their own thing. Like, they shouldn't try to copy me or anyone else. They shouldn't try to copy, what's his name? John Lee Dumas.
Right.
And they shouldn't try to copy their favorite radio guy. It has to be their personality. This is a very personality-based medium. Is that right?
Well, I think that anybody listening to this show, because it's your audience, Ben, and I'm one of the people that's a fan of yours, and already you should have your voice developed. That's one of the compliments I give you all the time, is that whenever I'm talking to you, I can't tell, if I'm reading you, if I'm listening to you on the podcast, if I'm reading one of your sales pages, you just always sound the same. You always sound consistent. You've got your voice developed. And that's a part of that maturity. That's why I say that this is not for beginners or hobbyists. I just think that there's other places you can start that are much easier than this, because you have to have a voice developed. You have to have a mindset. You have to have a philosophy behind you, because that's what's going to carry your show.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. And I'm not trying to give myself props here. All right. This is,
yeah, right.
I just don't know anyone else to judge this by. I really don't. You were telling me about that. So having that consistent voice, and would you say that someone, my show listeners, at least the ones I push here, are all probably doing emails. But let's say somebody's not on my email list and they're not indoctrinated with email all the time. Is that something they should start doing, even if they have the money to start doing this? Should they start banging out emails for, every week, every day, and try to develop that voice first? Because I didn't even know that I had this consistency until you told me. I mean, to me, I don't know. It just is what it is. But I just want to make sure that people listening to this don't try to copy anybody, and that they develop their own unique personality and voice first. Because I'm talking, look, there's a lot of copywriters probably listening to this who like to swipe. You know what I mean? And they never understand. I have to keep lecturing them about not stealing other person's personality, because it comes off as fake. And, nobody wants to deal with a wannabe somebody else.
I think that the one thing that I'm going to keep going back to, Ben, and this is why I always give you props and why I owe so much of my profits to you. But I think it's so much easier to bang out an email and write words and start making sales. And once you get that going, then you can start looking into what other opportunities there are. So, for instance, if you're already writing emails and you're making money every day, yeah, maybe this is a viable option. But if you're not making a sale a day or a certain dollar amount a day, then I would just say go to emailplayers.com and sign up for that first. I mean, that's how I started with Ben, and I made lots of money right from the beginning, even with the free one that you give away. I think that's a easier way to start, because this is more involved and there's more to it, with the whole production and the ideas and the packaging and the syndication. It could get overwhelming as a place to start. And I hope I'm not really, maybe, am I talking everybody out of podcasting at this point, Ben?
You should, though. I like this. I mean, this is not fantasy land. I mean, I'm, as someone who's only been doing this for 2 months?
Yeah.
I can tell you, dude, I would be completely lost without this kind of guidance. I wouldn't even probably be doing it anymore. I mean, I think it's important. Like, you got a lot of overeager people out there who just kind of see an opportunity and they jump on it and they don't know what they're doing, and then they get emotional about it, and then they'll end up quitting. And why waste their time? I mean, you should talk them out of this. I mean, there's a huge potential reward here, but it's not. I like the fact that you're doing that. Please do. Like repulsion marketing. All right, repulsion marketing.
Look, I'm being real, man. I'm being real about this, because I sunk a lot of money. Like, for instance, the podcast that I did. Well, not the one I'm doing. I'm still doing another podcast 2 times a week in addition to the one I'm doing with you, which is profitable. The show I did before that, when I look back at my books, basically I threw away like $4,000 making a show 27 episodes that didn't really make me any money. And I'm just trying to protect you guys from that. The only reason I was able to come back and make another show was because I had my sales game down. I had my email game down, and I had profits that I could invest to then magnify my results.
And would it be, I guess this would be accurate, but I'm going to ask it to use a question just to make sure, because I don't know for a fact. Okay. But people should not go into this thinking they're going to start a podcast Tuesday and be rich by Thursday. I mean, this takes time and you have to build things up. I mean, we're still building stuff up. And would that be true? I mean, I'm trying to get the people who just like see dollar signs whenever they think of something new or exposed to something new to have that realistic expectation.
Yeah, I don't think this is a short fuse because you're saying right now, so you and I have recorded, this will be the 12th show, and you're just now starting to get the feedback. And I knew this feedback would come. I mean, I've done this before, but you start getting the people where they're coming and telling you, hey, listen to your show. Hey, I buy your products. Hey, whatever you said on the show. Here's where it gets really good is when the people start quoting your show as they're buying your products, right? So you've probably had some of that happen where they're just quoting your show and they're like in a trance, right? But that doesn't happen the first second you put a show out there. You got to deliver consistently. You got to have that voice and you got to be driving it, right? Because like I said, it's not going to be, look, iTunes is not going to send you traffic until you prove to them that you're worth sending traffic. And the way you do that is by putting out good content and sending your own traffic there. So maybe this is not the right time, but I'm going to throw this in as a bonus right now, Ben. I want to talk about the little bonus traffic that iTunes throws at you really quickly. So people go in and they think, hey, I'm just going to go to iTunes because they're going to push me traffic, and that's what iTunes is all about. And you're wrong, actually, because if you put a show out there and you don't send anybody to it, it just withers and dries up and dies, right? And I told you that from the beginning. I said, Ben, you got to push traffic. We got to push traffic. We got to do certain stuff to get you at the top, and then iTunes will reward you. And so what happened was, in the beginning, you remember your show would get like 500 downloads or so right when you sent that email, and then it would trickle off. Now what happens, if you look at your charts, and I try to keep you up to date on them, is you get 500 downloads one day, and the next day you end up with another 400, and that's the iTunes bonus, right? So once iTunes sees that you can do this consistently, they start rewarding you with more traffic, right? But it's only until you've proven yourself, and that could take 4, 6, 8 weeks. I mean, in our case, it took like almost 2 months till we started getting the bonus, and you were pushing good traffic, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is good stuff to know. And I think it's also good, this might sound a little pessimistic to some people, but if you have an email list and especially if you're like reading my stuff and you just know you're doing emails, this is good news. This means you're up ahead of probably most people if you're doing regular emails, because you've got that built-in audience and you've got a loyal audience, and that you probably have your voice down in all this. And I like how these two mediums go so hand in hand, actually.
It's interesting. It becomes easier. And I think that magic bullet that we talk about, that consistency, right? To me, that's the magic bullet to success. I got to tell you, man, I challenged myself last month to email every single day, Ben. I mean, I didn't want to take a day off, and I emailed every single day last month, and I saw some rewards. I mean, I saw some rewards, obviously, in my bank account. I saw some rewards as far as my downloads go, but you gotta hit it every day, and you gotta have somebody to hit it with. If I send 300 and iTunes likes me and they send 300, now you're doing 300 downloads a day. Now you're into something.
Yeah, I like that. I like how this builds up. And I gotta be honest, I haven't thought about any of this stuff. Like when my part of the show is try to put on the best show I can.
Yeah,
and I think it helps just to someone who might start podcasting. Like, it almost helps that I don't think about how many downloads we have. I mean, I like when you tell me, but I don't like pursue it. I don't go, hey, how many downloads we get? I don't put that pressure on myself. And I think that's a big part of it. So what about, let's get to the softwares. Like, what are the basic technical things? Let's say someone did want to do their own show. I mean, let's just be honest. Most people listening to this probably not going to want to invest a lot, significant money or anything, or they're going to try to wing it. They're going to do everything we told them not to do. They're going to touch the stove while it's hot. So let's turn the stove on. What are some what equipment? What's like the bare equipment that they need? And in layman's terms, like talk to me because I'm a techno idiot. So you're talking to me here, not just everyone else. Explain to me what my knowledge level is very low on this stuff. So what would you say if we were starting over from scratch again?
Okay, so equipment-wise, this is another one of those areas where I don't necessarily agree with the experts, Ben. So I just want to put that out there because they'll tell you that you can just go ahead and get you a $26 Logitech and you could go have at it, and I don't agree with that. I mean, right now in iTunes, let's see, there's some interesting numbers that I got from that John Lee Dumas interview. I wonder if I have them on this sheet. Anyway, there's something like 45 million people who visit iTunes each month, right? And then there's 1 billion. And look, this is from the interview I got. You guys can check this out. I didn't know where to find this number, even though I looked for it, but I will credit John Lee Dumas for this. 1 billion subscribers to podcasts. And there are thousands of new podcasts coming out every day. So even though it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there, I think that you need certain things in order to stand out. Okay, so a Logitech headset and just throwing something together, a Skype recording, in my book, that doesn't cut it. Okay, so let's just talk about the first and most important thing. You need a microphone. And you're now using the same microphone as me. Let's talk about this for a second, and then we'll get into the actual nuts and bolts.
Okay.
But, I mean, Ben, be honest. Weren't you a little bit jealous about the way I sounded in the first couple of shows versus the way you sounded?
Not just jealous. I felt like a complete idiot because that first episode especially, I thought I had my microphone. Like, I didn't even know how to have my microphone working. So I thought it was on that day. And it obviously wasn't, so it was just going through my laptop's speaker. So yes, I that was huge. In fact, I mean, it was so embarrassing that I actually hope that people don't listen to the first episode. Let's put it that way, even to this day.
I even got an email from someone. I never told you about this, but I got an email from someone that said, "Tell Ben to get a new mic. His sidekick sounds way better than him." And I was pissed because I was called the sidekick, but kind of happy because it sounded good.
Sidekick. Or to quote a great movie, Kick-Ass 2, you're kind of like the Alfred to my evil Bruce Wayne.
Nice. Yeah, so
Butler.
equipment matters, right? So I say if you're going to do this, like I said, you got to have a budget. You got to be able to invest in some good equipment. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you AT2020 USB is my microphone. And actually what I started doing, Ben, is now anybody that works with me, anybody that signs up actually they have to apply now, but if they make it through, I'm sending them the setup because I want them to have good sound. So AT2020 USB, you want to have a shock mount for that. For some reason, the shock mount makes your voice sound deeper. And then you want to use a real stand, right? Not some wimpy little stand. You want a stand that can hold your microphone in place and not fall down and absorb vibration and also keep that mic right in front of your face so that you sound good and you're not hunched over when you record. And then I would say also a pop filter. So those are the pieces of equipment that I recommend, and I'll share links to them in the show notes as well so you guys can get them on Amazon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that list you sent me was extremely helpful. And I just went to Amazon, put it all in there, and had it in 2 days because I'm on Amazon Prime and easy to set up. Even I could figure it out. So here's an interesting thought. I want to get your opinion on something. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just going to throw this out there. You mentioned like right now, podcasting is kind of like the wild, wild west. Like it's in the gold rush phase probably.
Yeah.
And is it safe to assume that, or maybe we should just assume it anyway, even if it never happens, it's not always going to be this easy to do it as it is now. Like iTunes could make it harder to even get up there. So it's actually to your benefit to do it sooner rather than later. Even, if you're not ready, don't do it. But if you're ready and you're putting it off, just realize it could be harder. Would you agree with that? Like they could put barriers up. I'm trying to think of the word, like what's the not reforms, but you know what I mean? Like regulations and that kind of stuff.
I think
make it harder.
It's unpredictable. Like, remember, I don't know if you've seen the news, but like Facebook right now, they're just clamping down on pages, and you're only getting 1% of the views you used to get. So anything can change, right? Anything's subject to change, and that's why I'm a big fan of you having your database before you get started, because even if things change, you still got people who want that, right? You've already built that relationship, and you're delivering them to them, whether it's in iTunes or anywhere else. That's the first thing. Yeah, I would say right now is a great time to get started, for sure, but only if you're going to go all in, only if you're going to invest in the good equipment, only if you're going to do a show at least every single week, only if you're going to promote that show. Like, if you're serious about making this a part of your business, you shouldn't wait. So I'll agree with that. But if you're still questioning it, or if you're do-it-yourselfer and all that, hey, you probably shouldn't get in, and you should probably save your money and do something else. I mean, the email players is $3.33 a day or something like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like $3.23 a day. People piss that away in coffees.
Yeah, easy. Starbucks medium, or whatever they call it over there.
So so this is not a medium for people. I've been talking lately about the investor mindset versus the opportunity mindset. This is an investment. This is not something you're necessarily going to see any return on investment right away, but yet the opportunity seekers tend to be attracted to it. So we know the opportunity seekers listening to this are going to try it anyway, and that's fine. But let's say, is it worth it for them to outsource to cheap things on like 5RR or anything like that? Or should they go, whether it be you or someone else, should they go with a high quality type help if they want help on this?
I think I always go for high quality. I like the high quality or the luxury experience. I like it to be, hands off. But that's the ROI and investor mindset, right? Because I'm the type of person that really, really values my time. So if you're like me and you value your time, hire some good people to help you, and you just show up. I mean, Ben, I don't want to keep repeating this, but all you do, right, when you work with me is you show up to do this recording, and then you write an email. I mean, is there anything else you have to do working with me?
No, I mean, it's very simple. I don't even, and honestly though, but full disclosure, I don't know if most people are going to have as an easy a time to, I have you see my notes before every show. I mean, they're not always that detailed. Sometimes I have like 5 things and I just wing it. So most people might have to put a little more time into that to prep for it. I mean, ideally I'd prep for 3 hours before, right? But that's not going to happen.
Come on.
But I just want to throw that out there. Maybe I'm trying to turn people off too from this podcasting. We're not really doing a very good job selling you, but we're trying to save, saving people real. Money and time. And we are keeping real. And you know what? I think I appreciate that. I know a lot of other people appreciate that. And it's definitely worth it if you are set up right. I mean, there's no question about it. So we're really talking to the opportunity-minded people, I would think, when we're telling not to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for those people. We can keep beating that drum, but it takes investment, it takes time, and it takes a serious business person who's looking for ROI. Now, I was going to talk a little bit about a hidden gold mine in iTunes. I think that right now it's better to talk about how I started my last podcast and kind of talk a little bit about that investor mindset, if that's okay with you, right?
No, so absolutely. Let's do it.
There's a couple different ways that you can make money through podcasting, right? And one of the ones that John Lee Dumas is famous for, he talks a lot about in that interview that I linked to in the show notes, is getting sponsors. I mean, you and I, we've even toyed around with the idea of sponsors. And here's the thing. I read an article in Inc., and they report that the magic number for getting sponsors, the big sponsors, like the audiobooks people or the Citrix people, is 10,000 downloads per month. So if you guys are not good at math, that's over 300 downloads per day, which is a lot.
Incidentally, where is this show at? Do you know on that?
Yeah. So last month, I mean, we're getting better, but we were probably right around 5,500 or so.
We're like halfway there then.
Halfway there, and we're 2 months in. So maybe by month 3, with a little push and some help from some friends and some consistency, we could consider Citrix or audiobooks.com or one of those people to advertise on the show if you wanted to do that. And
what do they pay? I mean, what does like a big one pay? Just
I'm not 100% certain because I haven't hit 10,000 downloads for show, so I never really took it seriously. And there's another reason too, man. And I hope this is okay, Ben, but I'm just not into the whole sponsorship thing. Like, I have this weird thing that I would rather my users pay for it. You know, like National Public Radio, they ask for donations to keep them afloat. I'd rather have my listeners pay me. Now, I don't want them to just throw money at me and give donations, but I would rather have the people that listen to my show buy my products and benefit from them so that they're directly fueling the show. I mean, does that make sense?
It does. I just wonder if you could do a hybrid of both. You know what I mean? And if that would make sense to do that. Like, Rush Limbaugh, he's got, sponsors, but he's also selling the Limbaugh letter at the same time.
I think you can. I just haven't toyed with that yet, so I don't know it well enough. And maybe in the future, that's something that I would think about. But here's the thing. Remember now, if you're just starting out or if you're getting your new show, I mean, are you going to be able to push 300 per day, 333 downloads or so? It's going to take a little while. So this is not the short road to success. I mean, sponsorship, I saw John Lee Dumas's report on what he was making on sponsorship, which was big freaking money, man. I think he does he started out originally making 15 G's a month, and now he's up to 40 G's a month in sponsorship. So there is big money in it.
See, this is totally an investment. I mean, that's the kind of money we want to get, eventually. And that's what makes it all worth putting all the time in and now and not seeing any real return. I mean, we're in the red, I think, right now, aren't we? Still way in the red?
A little bit.
Yeah, so, and it doesn't help when I'm like, hey, let's change the music and all that stuff. But whatever.
That's okay.
No, this is very interesting. Very interesting.
Let's talk about this because I want to just kind of give your listeners an idea of how I did it. So originally, man, the guy that I did that show with where I sunk 4 G's into, and then it's like, look, we can't do this anymore, man. This is getting very expensive, very time consuming. It's not fun anymore. He kept hounding me like, look, we got to do a podcast. We got to do a podcast because he had gotten so much good feedback from his customers and all his buyers were listeners and stuff. And then we stopped doing the show and they were disappointed. So I racked my brain and I got into my investor mindset and said, how could I do a show again, without taking all the risk of putting money into it and all that? So what we did was we came up with a product, right? We came up with a product and we sold that product to our list. Another reason why you need to have a list to do this, right? So we sold the product to our list. I think we made something like, I don't know, $2,000 on that first run. Not a lot of money, but it was enough to get the show going, to get my editing, my website, get everything going, right? So I said, we make this product, we take this $2,000, we reinvest it in the business. ROI, right? Investor mindset. Then about 10 shows in, so that was a weekly show back then. So that's 2.5 months, 10 shows in, we've almost burnt through our $2,000. We do our next product launch and direct sales, Ben. I mean, I was doing phone sales for this. Direct sales from the show were 5 sales at $500 a piece. So we made $2,500 on our $2,000 investment. But you see, it was like 2.5 months out before we got it.
Yeah.
Now that business, by the way, it is up to 5 figures in sales. And every time we do a launch, we sell. And so far, I mean, when we interview the people that are inside our members area, 90% are listeners. So this is why I go back to that idea of building the bond, strengthening the relationships, hitting them from different angles, right? So that something's going to resonate with them. It's just things that we call hooks in copywriting, right? You're going to hook them with something either in your emails or what you say in your show, and that's what's going to bring them in. You want different ways to hook them, and this is just another way to do that if you have that ROI and investor mentality.
Yeah, I like how we're given the foundation here because, I mean, I didn't even know about the advertising. Like, I didn't know what people were actually doing with that, and that that excites me, man. I didn't even know about that before. That excites me to want to do even twice a week if we have to. You know what I mean?
Nice. There's some money there.
There is. And, I mean, the potential is huge, and I think it's only going to get bigger.
Well, check this out. Let's talk about another little secret, right? So I want to give you guys a little secret sauce that I just discovered. And look, when we set out to do the show, we were already hitting our audience, right? This same show that I've been telling you about, we were just hitting the people in our database to get our first listens and our first sales and all that stuff. And so we were kind of silly in the way we were naming shows, right? We would just name shows stuff that we said during the show that only listeners would understand. Now, I don't think you're an expert in this, and I think it's an opportunity that we need to look at for the Ben Settle Show. But you remember SEO? Search engine optimization?
I remember it. I do remember it, and it's everybody tells me it's dead now, but what's going on with that?
Right. So people say SEO is dead and Penguin Update and all this stuff. Well, look, 45 million people are visiting iTunes every month, and they're using this little thing up in the corner called the search bar, right? So they're searching for different keywords. So inside of iTunes, Ben, SEO is alive and well. And here's how I know. I told you we were naming our shows funky little names. We didn't have any keywords. Well, we wanted to fix that, right? So last month we went back in and we renamed all our shows to be more, first of all, niche, because we're targeting real estate agents, and more keyword focused. So it was around real estate agents and those kinds of keywords that would attract them. And so we had a really great month in February, right? We had our best month ever, and we thought we were so cool because it's 28 days in February, and we got our best month ever, and we thought we were doing great. Then we hit this SEO thing, right? We start just changing our titles, because what I realized is inside of iTunes, when you hit that search bar, Ben, what happens is you actually not only get shows by their title, like as far as the Ben Settle Show Entrepreneur, but also episode titles. So that search engine results page inside of iTunes, if you're using keywords in your show titles as well as your show name, you're going to show up on that page more and get more traffic. Now, here's how I know it works. We thought we were awesome, right, when we did really well in February. But just this past March, we did the SEO thing and made a couple little changes here and there. And we ended up with 42% more downloads in 1 month, bro.
Wow. Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing like 200 downloads a day now from 100 downloads a day a couple months ago.
It reminds me a lot of Amazon's. It's got its own internal SEO too,
Right.
It may not be in Google or whatever, but it's in its own platform. And like you said, there's a 45 million, what is it? 45 million people listen a month?
Users visiting the website monthly.
Wow, man. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Well, and the opportunity, Ben, is niche. You got to go niche. So you're going after copywriters. I'm going after real estate agents. If you're getting in now, that's what you have to look at. How small of a niche can I carve out and still be profitable?
Yeah, because copywriters are not a very big niche. I mean, I'm going after my own list, basically. I don't know who would be finding us outside of my list, but that's a good point. I mean, if I was in a more mass market or something, would that benefit me, or would that make it worse? Like, is it good to be in a mass market or to be in a niche?
I think right now the opportunity is a little bit more niche. You know how we identify ourselves. Like when I was a real estate agent, I identified myself as a real estate agent, and I might look at real estate agent podcasts, or if I'm a copywriter, I think, in my mind, I identify myself with copywriters. And so I might look for a copywriting podcast. I think that niche and letting people know when they search that what they're looking for, like basic keywords like direct response and that kind of thing would work great with the copywriting podcast and would work great in the show titles. And that's why I say I like the titles we give the shows, but I think we're missing an opportunity to go back and get some of that SEO traffic that you're not picking up right now. And I think that would be a quick way to add more downloads to the Ben Settle Show.
Sounds good, man. And My friend Michael Senoff, he's been doing iTunes for years, like since 2004, I think, or whatever, 5. And I remember him saying he was getting a ton of downloads for like the term negotiation. You know, it's like little things like that. And he get like hundreds of downloads just for that. So I guess that's something to talk about, man.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on that.
How do okay, so I'm looking at your notes here. How do we get to the top of iTunes? Because this is what people are going to want to know once they're going to put all this work in there. They probably want to at least know that.
Yeah, I've had really good luck with that. Actually, my last 2 shows, your show being one of them, and my other show being the other, getting them inside the top 10 of iTunes, noteworthy for business and that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to share what I know. iTunes doesn't reveal this, but like I said, I study the experts, listen to what people say, put some stuff into practice, and it's been working so far. So hopefully it'll work for you guys too. But there's 4 key things that you're going to need, Ben, if you want to get to the top of iTunes when you first launch your show. Okay. So first, you got to have some sort of hosting in place that gives you an RSS feed. I like to use Libsyn. And without talking too much nerd talk, basically, iTunes doesn't actually host your show. iTunes is more like a display and a way to get your show in front of people, but you have to host it somewhere. I like to use Libsyn. They give you the RSS feed, which you need to create your podcast in iTunes. So that's the first thing you need. Okay. Second thing you need is to have your distribution in place. You have to have you have to have your show ready to go, right? You have to have your graphics done, right? You have to have your website up, because what happens is when you submit your RSS to iTunes, like I told you earlier, there is a manual reviewer, and if they see a nice icon, if they see that you have a website, then they know that you're a real person and not just a spammer, so they're more likely to approve you. And I really found that out when I did your show recently. Usually it had taken me 2 to 3 days to get inside of iTunes, and with your show it took me about 12 hours because we had everything in place already, so it was easy to approve.
Interesting. Okay.
So third, you're going to need some frequency, because apparently iTunes, that traffic bump that I told you about, iTunes rewards you by how many downloads you've gotten in the last 24 hours. So, for instance, the day that you promote your show and you get a big bunch of downloads, iTunes sees that, and then they reward you with some more downloads. So what you want to do is when you're submitting to iTunes, you want to already have a couple shows in the queue ready to go. That's also another tip off to that manual button pusher that allows you to get into iTunes to say, this person's serious, they're not spamming, they have episodes planned out, so this is going to be good for iTunes, because that's what they want. They want good quality content, and they want it regularly. And I'd say the minimum you want to do is once a week. If you can do more, it's better, really, as John Lee Dumas has proven. And even us, we went from 1 show a week, and when I saw the numbers start fading, we turned it to 2 shows a week, and then we started gaining traction. Now, fourth, and this is a really important one, and this is another reason why you need to have a list, you need to be able to get reviews, Ben. You got to get reviews right away. You got to get at least, and this is a magic number, this is a real number. I might even share a link to a video I made about this in the show notes, but if you can do 2 reviews per show within your first 4 shows, so 8 reviews, you're going to start showing in the new and noteworthy, and you're even going to start moving in the top 10. Remember how you were in, 42nd or something like that? And I told you, Ben, we got to get reviews, we got to get reviews, and you popped up into like 7th place.
I do remember that.
Yeah, so those are the 4 things, and that's kind of like the secret sauce. Hopefully I didn't give away too much, but yeah, I mean, you have to have everything together ready to submit so that it makes it easy for the person to just say yes and let you in. You have to have your distribution and hosting in place, because iTunes doesn't host it for you. You have to have frequencies, so a couple of shows in the queue, and you have to be ready to get reviews. So the only way you're going to get those is to ask for them on the show or ask for them through email, right?
And that's, that's not hard to get 2 per show. You got your family and friends will do that for you, It's not even that hard. Imagine getting way more reviews by pushing it to your list, though.
You did awesome. I mean, you did a contest and everything, and I don't think I ever saw us hit number one, but competition has gotten stiff in there, man. That's what I'm saying. So even when you have everything together, competition is still stiff. But I think I saw the Antipreneur Show hit at least number 4 a couple times. And the thing with iTunes is their ratings change hourly. So you got to be there watching it to see it move up and move down. And I remember I was sharing that stuff with you on Facebook, right? Where I'd be like, oh, look, we're up in the charts today. I knew the times to look because I knew when we were emailing, I knew when we were promoting, so I knew when would be a good time to look. But still, I mean, everything changes. So you have to be able to promote that show, and you have to be able to carry it for the first couple, at least 4 episodes before iTunes even starts giving you a bump of traffic.
This is really good information. And the technical stuff, I'm going to highly suggest everyone listening to this look at Jonathan's offer, which we'll give you the link to soon. But I'm like I said, there's so many like moving parts to this. It's not like it's impossible to do. I mean, if somebody wants to go to the iTunes like creator FAQ, all that, have at it. Or you can just hand it over to Jonathan and his team and not think about it.
Look,
I don't
man,
know. The more you talk about this stuff.
Just say in the show notes, like for you guys out there that are do-it-yourselfers, as I promised. I mean, the show notes I made sure were very detailed with all the links so that you guys that can't afford it or you do-it-yourselfers, you have everything you need to get started. So I want to make that clear that we're putting all that in the show notes, BSA12, right? bensettleshow.com/BSA12. But, I mean, I'm just ROI minded, so I wouldn't go and do this all by myself. I mean, it's like pulling your hair out. I mean, all the little moving parts and all the mistakes you make. I mean, if you had a way to avoid that and if you valued your time, then maybe my service would make sense. But if not, we're going to make all that available to you. I just want to be clear about that.
And we should be clear about one other thing. I mean, you have a qualification process. You're not just going to take anybody who comes to you. So don't waste Jonathan's time. If you really don't have your act together, you're not ready for this based on the criteria he's laid out, please don't waste his time because you're just going to make him angry. You're going to make me angry, and you would not like us when we're angry.
we'll turn into pink
Incredible
Hulks.
Hulks.
I appreciate
Digital
you saying
Hulk.
that, Ben, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, I'm not really looking to do any more shows, but you've told me and you've had other people tell you that they're really interested in this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, if you go to thatpodcastguy.com, I'm going to make this audio available because I think this is going to be a valuable audio along with the show notes that we're talking about. But there's also a way to apply, right? So you can apply to work with me because I just want to make sure, look, if you can't push 500 downloads a week, I can't help you. I mean, that's the bottom line. Because if you're not pushing 500 downloads a week, you're really, I mean, you're better served doing something else. And that's why we've been trying to tell you that. And that's why we're making these show notes available. So if you can't do that, you still have a way to do it without us. But right now I'm looking at people who have a business, right? People who are entrepreneurs, people who have an ROI mindset and know that the long game is where the payoff is, right? So you got to put a little bit of time in, you got to put a little bit of money in. And what I do, and what Ben can attest to, is that I make it really freaking easy. Like, you show up, we get on the phone and we have a chat, and that's it, right? That's it till you get a finished product. And so that's where I'm at. I'm into delivering really high quality service. I mean, Ben, I mean, this has been pretty freaking easy. I mean, this has got to be one of the easiest things you could do to get content out there. I know this is easier than you writing 10 articles per day every day. I know that for sure.
Yeah, and you just make it like just no-brainer easy. I mean, it just like I really don't have to think. I had to learn 2 things. I had to learn how to set up my mic.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to put my file into Google Docs.
Right.
What is it? Google
Drive.
Google Drive. I don't even know the website.
Perfect.
That's how like brainless you can be to do this. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys.
Is there any other stuff you?
It's just go to
thatpodcastguy.com.
You'll see up in the upper right-hand corner, where you can apply to do a show, and I'm going to ask you some personal questions like your budget and your list size, because I need to know you're serious. But if you're looking for that ease and you're looking for that convenience, I want to make that available to a few select people who are going to be fun to work with. And this is selfish of me, Ben, because I know the people that can afford this are smart people. So selfishly, I know I get to spend time with them. So even though I'm not making that much money, because it is very expensive, you've seen the bookkeeping for these shows, it's quite expensive. I value the time. Like, look, how many guys get to spend an hour with Ben Settle a week? Not many. So that's the kind of people I'm looking for to work with.
Yeah, I mean, my time is very valuable, Jonathan. I'm just going to run with that little ego boost. I don't care. I don't care. So, you know what? I want to add something in real. Okay. I want to add something in real quick about this. This isn't a technical thing, but there are people who are very introverted and they think they have all the criteria, but they're afraid they can do this, like talk. And I just want to tell you a quick story because this will ease everything up for you. First time I ever got interviewed was by my friend Michael Sunoff for his website, hardtofindseminars.com, where he interviews all these people. And I kid you not, Jonathan, I was like, he was recording it. He was going to edit it. Anything that I wanted taken out could be taken out. We could re-record stuff if we wanted to. And I was like, I could barely talk. I mean, I was so nervous.
Wow.
And after like the first one, it just got easier and easier and easier. And like this first podcast was a little weird. Not because I'm afraid of speaking or anything, but just because it was a new thing.
No, because you didn't sound as good as me.
It just gets easier is my point. It's just like the more you do it, you're just having a conversation. So don't let that like put you off. If you have all the criteria to do this and you have something to say, this is like therapeutic, man. I was telling you, I have to do this. The emails are not enough for me. I have to like get all this crap out of my subconscious. It's always, someone up writing some more violent zombie books or something. But it helps, man. There's like other benefits to this than just the obvious. So I just throw that out there for everybody's.
I mean, it's a good outlet to really, when you get to ramp up on an idea, you can write an email or you can write a week of emails, but there's something about getting yourself a nice half-hour show where you could go into some detail. And the cool part is that you can reuse this stuff. Like a lot of times we have a big catalog in our other show. We have over 60 shows now, and we're able to go back into those core shows and reuse them to re-engage customers, to remind them of certain things, to hit certain hot buttons. That's the awesome part, because you have the whole thing at your disposal, right? You have the audio, you have the transcripts if you want to use them to turn them into products. You have all different ways to use this stuff. And that's something that we didn't even get to talk about, how you can syndicate this and how you can get more traffic out of it or links or whatever you want to do. I mean, that's the stuff that is up to you as an individual, how you want to take this, tackle it, use it, and get an ROI from it.
It also occurred to me when we were talking about getting the big advertisers that you could actually make a business just out of this if you had a big enough list. I don't have that big of a list, but if we're doing 5,500 downloads last month or whatever per month, if I did this 7 days a week, just plugging that show, I bet we would be getting those big advertisers.
Oh yeah,
by
for
now.
sure. Definitely.
I mean,
that's how that guy made it big. John Lee Dumas is just the daily, because remember, iTunes gives you that bump. So he had to push less traffic and just do more consistency. And by the way, I just want to say something, Ben. I screwed up on the numbers. You actually had over 6,000 downloads. So you too, my friend, are doing over 200 downloads a day so far. And it took you a lot less time to get there than it did me.
Well, this is my point. I mean, I don't know if John Lee Dumas had an email list or not that he was using, but people listening to this, a lot of them are my email players, subscribers, and just website readers, and they're doing email. It's like they could start out absolutely like they don't know what to sell. I don't know what to sell. I have this list, but I'm tired of selling ebooks. Hey man, you could do a whole business just based on that. I'm really thinking about this now, Jonathan. Like maybe I need to do 2 shows a week,
what I'm thinking about is building a podcast network, like inside of real estate, and doing the whole thing, the mass thing, where we have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different contributors, and I'm getting a show every day so that I can get into that ad revenue across my network. So there are a lot of possibilities if you're one of those people that can think big and see beyond today.
This has been excellent, man. So let's close out with your URL one more time.
Sure. You guys can go to podcastguy.com. And what you'll see is up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little button where you can apply to work with me. And what happens is you click that button, you fill out the form, and yes, I'm going to ask you personal questions. If you qualify, my office will be in touch with you to set up a time for us to talk. And if I like you when we talk, then we can move to the next level, and that's where we start recording your show.
Awesome.
Thanks,
man.
Ben. Thank you so much, man. You know, I got to say, I have looked up to you forever. You've made me a lot of money, and you just allowed me to be on your show. You're a really cool dude, Ben. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, I wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't offered to help me, so it's all good.
It works
Well, I guess
out.
I don't know what the next show is going to be about as usual, but it'll be something hopefully helpful.
There'll be some dating
All right,
advice.
we'll see. I could get some of that out. All right, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And remember, show notes are going to be available at bensettleshow.com/BSA12. They give you the step-by-steps to break this all down. Thanks.
If you have a question after listening to this show, you can go to my website at bensettle.com and just go to the contact tab at the top and shoot me any of your questions. Just cool questions, simple questions. If it's something I think I can help you with, I'll answer it.